And to help patients access life-saving treatments, we passed right to try. I love that. You know what that is. I hope nobody in this room ever has to use it, especially you folks, you're so young. But I hope nobody has to use it. But people would travel all over the world to try and get relief. People that had money, people that didn't have money would just go home with no hope. And now we have the right to use our great geniuses, the best in the world, for possible cures that haven't been approved yet. Couldn't use them. They'd go to Asia, they'd go to London, people would go to London, any place. And now we're using it, and we have had some incredible success. And I must say, the other day I was watching a favorite network of mine that I really have a lot of respect for. That doesn't always treat me so great, by the way. They could do better. But at least they're fair. And I was watching, and I heard the story of an incredible, unbelievable young woman who was battling rare bone cancer. They made a mistake. A doctor or a hospital made a mistake. She called it it was a medical error. Her name is Natalie Harp, and she lit up the television screen like very few people I've ever seen do it. And she talked about how they were preparing her for death. And because of Right to Try, she's now living and I think doing phenomenally well. And somebody said she's here. Are you here, Natalie? Where's Natalie? Will you come up here, please? Come up, Natalie.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we all know the story about the Good Samaritan, but what you don't know is I was that forgotten person on the side of the road, the victim of medical error, the #3 cause of death under the previous administration, and left to die of cancer. First, the medical establishment, they came by and they saw me there, so they wrote prescriptions for opioids and they walked on. Next, the political establishment, they saw me there. And they stopped just long enough to come over and tell me how to die, how to speed up my death so I could somehow die with dignity. But then an outsider, my Good Samaritan, President Donald J. Trump, he saw me there and he didn't walk by, he stopped. And for every single one of us, he gave up his own quality of life so we could live and work and fight with dignity, because he believes in survival of the fighters, not the fittest. And so, Mr. President, I have to say you have made a lot of promises to us, and you have kept every one of them. So now we're going to make you this promise. Just as you fought for us, forgotten America will never forget how you saw us on the side of the road, and you walked over, and you picked us up, and you made us great again. And now we're going to fight for you, Mr. President. God bless you.
Thank you, Natalie. It was an incredible thing. I saw the pictures of Natalie. She was in a wheelchair, she was in a bed, and they showed, and it was so incredible. And they were actually preparing her for death. And because of Right to Try, they had a medicine that wouldn't have been approved for years, but it was very, very, it's looking good. It was looking very good. Now it's looking a lot better, Natalie, I have to tell you. I don't know what that was, but that sucker worked, Natalie. You know, part of the problem with Right to Try is that the big pharmaceutical companies and the labs, they didn't want to do it because they didn't want to have where a person's terminally ill or very in bad shape. They didn't want to have that on their record. I understood that. And so we didn't put it on their record. We made a second, record which people don't see and we don't want to show. It's unfair to them, but they didn't want it on their record because people were very far along, unfortunately. But cases like Natalie have not even been that unique. We've saved many lives with what's going on. And ultimately, I guess that's probably also the best test for a medicine to see whether or not it's good, because it really, it's worked so well and we're so proud of it. They've been trying to get that approved for 45 years. They couldn't get it done. Not that easy, because the medicals didn't want it, the doctors didn't want it, the country didn't want it, our country, because they say, well, if something happens, a person's terminally ill, then they die, then we'll get sued if we do something. I said, that's okay. They'll sign an exculpatory letter. They'll sign a letter saying that we're not going to hold anybody liable. That's okay. And they said, well, that's a good idea. Can you imagine 45 years, nobody thought of that? Obviously, they're not in the real estate business in New York. Yeah.